All right, so today we are talking more about doing cinematic animations. I'm going to try to remember to do my screen share here. And we've got a lot of work that we can do with just the animation. I put a bit of time in, about an hour and a half before the stream, trying to get some more poses and timing laid out a little better for the animation sequence that we have where the character is just running across the scene. And I just needed a little bit of time to focus to make sure that I was kind of heading in a direction that looked pretty decent. I'm at this I don't know, honeymoon phase right now with my posing because it feels like it's going well and everything, but I know how it goes. It usually ends up going through this phase pretty soon, especially when you start tweening it, where everything starts looking terrible. And that's pretty normal. So hopefully everything's working. Let me just double check my mic audio. Yeah, there it is. Oh, we got Drawn Skull here. I remember you showed up on Scott's stream yesterday, so that's cool to see that you came back. So yeah, welcome. I'm doing well, by the way. That's the answer to your question. I'm a little it's been an hour and a half of me animating, so I guess I'm a little bit in the zone at the moment. But what I'm going to try to do today is just make sure that we have a situation where when I'm finished, we'll have something that is worth, maybe we'll get to the tweening. I hope we get to the tweening part, but at least to the point where we have a good layout. Already it's pretty well roughed out for what the scene is going to look like. Enough to be able to move ahead so that next week maybe we'll try to do some more VFX. Actually, next week I'm taking a holiday, so I won't be here next week. But the week after that, I'll come back and maybe we'll do some more Niagara effects, do the gunshot phasers or something. I'll have to do a little bit of R&D before we get to that, so that makes sure that actually covers something that's productive. Because I'm not very familiar with VFX or Niagara, but I do know enough to probably get the job done. And all we need really is just a little blast of light or whatever, so it shouldn't be too crazy to accomplish that. And who knows what we'll do after that? I don't know. I was thinking maybe we could even try putting in. You could even segue to gameplay if you wanted to, or maybe do another shot of another action scene or something. But there's lots of ideas and lots of things to explore. There is also what I was talking about last week, where which I kind of covered. Oh, let me answer some questions here. Can you tell me who is the main person in charge of making a video game? I would say the design director, probably. From my experience, it's been there's been one guy in charge of design, and he's pretty much the top guy. So aesthetic decisions goes to the art director, but the art director has to follow the game flow and stuff. So what happens in games is everything, all your creativity is driven by gameplay, and that's kind of the way it needs to be. And I know when I first started in the industry, there was a lot of dialogue about, should it be story based or should it be gameplay driven? And realistically, it's got to be gameplay based, because that's really going to be the necessary element that keeps the players playing. There is definitely games out there that will be story driven and they're fun to play. I know there's quite a lot. There's quite a lot out there that are like that, but in the end, it's still gameplay based. So anyway, from my experience, it's always been like, gameplay rules. So you gotta follow with whatever their decisions are. So if the gameplay suddenly decides, this game mechanic's not working, this cinematic isn't gonna fit, this isn't gonna make sense, now all of a sudden you have to change your cinematic, and it might be like halfway through production or even right near the end of production, and all of a sudden your whole cinematic is getting thrown away, and you're going back and remocapping new scene and trying to squeeze it in as quickly as you can, which results in less quality cinematic. It doesn't always look as great, but that's not the priority. The priority is that the gameplay works. A cinema trailer of Watchdog. Yeah, Watchdog. Yeah, I saw that one too. And I got intro. I got Into the Spider-Verse 5. Oh yes, I remember you wrote that yesterday, and I know what you're talking about. The Watchdog intro or the Watchdog trailer, I thought also was quite interesting, and they were showing it on one of the streams with Ryan and Jeremy in the start of the week when Ubisoft was releasing all their trailers. Watch Dogs 2 trailer, I believe it is. And it was pretty cool because it's. Is this it? Yeah. Oh, wait, maybe this isn't the one I've seen. Let me check it out. Definitely not the one I recognize. Thought it was going to be easy to find it. No, I don't think it is. Anyway, it was an awesome trailer, so it's too bad I can't find it. Am I on like the wrong path here? Too bad. Oh, what's this? It's the wrong game. Dogs 2, can't be right. It's 2016. I gotta find out what the latest one is. I need some help. Tell me what the latest one is. Yeah, better. Legion. There we go. Yes, this is what I'm looking for. I guess it wasn't Watch Dogs 2. I must not really be following the Watch Dogs series very well. In fact, I haven't actually played any of the games. I remember when it first came out, it was all like controversial and very like extremely impressive quality, but then it didn't quite live up to its standards of its trailer. But anyway, this is the trailer I was talking about, or that you were talking about, and it has a lot of interesting action and like, you know, there was some discussion. It's probably like some live action mixed in with all this different digital effects. And anyway, the whole point was it's a really cool story idea behind it, but it definitely isn't like gameplay. And I guess that was the big controversy that Ryan was arguing. He frustrates him that you watch a story like this and it has nothing to do with gameplay. It just has to do with building up a storyline through a short film. And I think, you know, there's arguments that you want to see gameplay to play game, and I definitely agree with that a lot. But in this case, it taught me something about the game that I would never have known before. So just watching a clip of gameplay doesn't necessarily give me a good impression of where the game's going. Like if I watched another trailer of Assassin's Creed, it probably would be like, is it going to be worth watching, like worth playing? I don't know. Like I feel like it really has to be interesting to watch, or interesting to play, and not just sort of a clip of the same thing as what all the other games were. But anyways, it's like there's lots of discussion on that point, but and I have my own opinion about what games I like and what games I don't like. But there isn't. No, anyways, whatever. I was like, I'm about to start another rant, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna stop. Anyways, jumping back, because obviously I'm not really prepared for like doing game trailers right now, but but I do like to talk about it because it is really there's a lot of interesting things happening right now. What I'm trying to do with the cinematic is get into I guess I could just have to start animating. That's what I'm doing right now. Go back to animating. Oh, I added this plate right here, which is interesting because it gives me the ground perspective that I couldn't find out when I was working in Unreal. And I think that and because I can't export the landscape of this scene, which is kind of important because the landscape is obviously a critical part of what the character is walking on, but because it's a dynamic landscape, I haven't figured out how to turn it into a static mesh or export it as an FBX or anything. So all I did was I created a piece of geometry, literally a plane, basic geometry plane, and just placed it on the ground on the same sort of angle. I think it's still here. I just have to unhide everything. Oops. Show all actors. So it's just this plane. So I just put it in the position that I thought the feet needed to go, and then exported that back out, synced it up just like we did with the rock. Just grab the two meshes, file, export selected, and then puts it to an FBX. And this is all being referenced into my scene. So went into my reference editor and updated the reloaded the reference, and that brought in the geometry for the feet to land on. So I think that was a pretty important stage, because what happened when I put it in the game, I realized that the feet were definitely cutting through the ground, and it's the best kind of workaround. It was a pretty quick workaround. Luckily the feet aren't really visible for most of the shots, so I can kind of get away with a lot there, but important. Hey Sean, nice to see another new face here. Let me know if you have any questions, guys. I'm happy to answer them, but I'm also happy to just explain what I'm doing. I'm building a career in film, games, animation, and comics. I have a big passion. Wow. That's a lot of stuff all at once. I don't even know. I can't even give you advice. I mean, honestly, my first thought is like, wow, that's too much. Like, that's going to be, you're going to be spread so thin. Oh, Sarah's here. But not for long. Another class. Another week. Another class. Same schedule. But I appreciate that you showed up for the first hour or whatever you can manage. Hopefully all my different stuff is working well today. I had a really embarrassing episode yesterday where I streamed my Q&A. Totally unintentional. So I have I have made some drastic measures to not let myself do that again. Oh, Sean's got a 5 hour in 5 hours as a class. All right. Oh yes, very good. Right, very good. Ron Skull says mostly film and animation. So yeah, I would say if you can lightly touch on elements but really focus on one category, you're probably going to have a lot more success. Just because you really can't, one human can't sort of really capture the whole thing. Well, unless you have a whole team of people following you. Oh yeah, Sarah just had her class with Mark. How's Mark doing? Is he good? I haven't talked to him for at least 2 days. How is he doing so far? Right. We both asked that question. Maybe for different, looking for different answers, but same question. He's doing pretty good. So the new poses I put in just a couple hours ago was just allowing the character to let it read a little better. So now the character pops up, shoots the gun. You can kind of see that happening, and jumps over the rock. But then really, I spent a lot of time focusing on what was going to happen after she jumps over the rock, given some attention to where the feet are coming down, and how the weight is being transferred. So now she's pushing off a little bit, getting her balance so that she leans forward, gets ready to go start down a hill. So she's running down a hill, so then she needs to kind of like lean back a little bit and prepare for like the acceleration speed. But you got to watch things like, what's the gun doing? Is the gun bouncing around too much? You want to make sure the gun kind of stays fairly steady, because it's pretty heavy, so you can't really expect it to be changing direction really quick. And what's the left hand doing? Is it it's going to come up and block her face. So just little elements there to try to figure out what she's up to and what she's looking at. So she's focused on the ground and stuff. Those are the things I'm working. Is VFX part of animation? VFX is definitely a part of animation if you're in that part of VFX. VFX can be a whole bunch of stuff. And so if you're in a VFX category where you're doing a lot of animation, then yeah, animation skill is a really critical component. John's back to his Overwatch conversation. Yes, if only she could vault, because I've not played Overwatch, so I don't understand the possible limitation there. I must admit, she looks like she can vault. Definitely feels right. So, as opposed to the some of the characters, which I knew their names, I can tell you which ones I mean. All right. So, where am I going to go next? So we got the character in the scene. I mean, I am sort of at this stage here where I don't really want to spend much time doing like a lot of subtle details yet. I'm still trying to make sure the timing works. So we're focusing on making sure that when I play it back, you can kind of imagine the gaps between the poses. And I think there's some moments in the transition where she runs down the hill. It seems a little bit like, I don't know, uneven, but we're in pretty good shape at this point. So I think there's definitely some poses maybe in the beginning where she's pokes up and shoots a gun that we're gonna have to establish. I think that's probably where we should focus. Just make sure we get that figured out. The running down the hill might be too slow, especially at the very end, but that's not going to be a big deal. Just a couple, tightening up some of the keys can be a big deal. Yeah, I'm not even sure why that key didn't get picked up. Weird. Supposed to be on 164. What? Alright, I'm gonna shift some back. Try that again. Ron Skull is going to take the VFX and animation classes at CG Spectrum probably next year. All right. That's awesome. So yeah, the course, the Foundations course is kind of labeled as a VFX animation course. But it's, I don't know, I guess technically you can take that and you would still learn animation, but you'd be learning in Maya. And then you learn modeling, and then you do, in the last term, Houdini, which I assume is what you're kind of talking about right now. Oh, you mean film, games, animation, and comics as the 4 industries? I just don't recommend it personally. I mean, not saying that you couldn't do it. Oh, we have a new follower. A Murdant. A Murdant. Probably saying that. Emerdant. Murdant? Sounds alright. Anyways, thank you for following. Appreciate it. By the way, Simon wanted to ask, animators just go straight ahead animation as they get more experience, or is it based on a preference? I don't think straight ahead animation is that functional, but there are situations where you could justify it. But I actually, if you are doing straight ahead animation, then yeah, kudos to you for doing that, because it's hard to do. It's kind of like doing stop motion animation, and it's amazing that stop motion animators, what they do. It's just crazy. I mean, obviously they don't always get it on the first try, but it's pretty amazingly close, and they're just doing straight ahead. So, but personally, it's very risky because you really have to be good at knowing the frame gaps and posing and keeping all the elements of the body in mind as you're moving from pose to pose to pose. And you know, if you can get that and get it right, that's pretty impressive. But meanwhile, if you got it wrong, now you've got a whole bunch of keys and you got to go through it and struggle to fix it all up. When I find the workflow is much faster if you just block it out like I'm doing right now, then you can make major fixes, reevaluate it, think about it. You have lots of time to polish before you get to a point where you're like, all right, I'm gonna lock it down and start adding a lot more. Sorry, I'm reading the comments, trying to register what I'm reading here. Emerden says, that's right. So maybe I got it right with the name. I'm assuming that's what it was. John Skull says, I'm have ideas for animated films and live action films, but not games. I have ideas for animated films, live action, not for games. I mean, it's totally fine that you have ideas for films and you could incorporate that into a game. It's just, the game's got to be fun and interactive. I don't know, there's a lot of like very heavy story games that I find that are very frustrating because you're either engaged in the story and then you're supposed to interact and you haven't been properly educated on how you're supposed to interact, and then you fail the story and it all of a sudden breaks the story because it's now like, I ruined the story because I did the wrong thing. And that's no longer a fun story to watch anymore. So you really have to be like, it has to be the right groove where you just feel like the story is really relying on you to interact and you are really doing what you think is right, to steer it in the right direction. And it gets really complicated, but not impossible. There's a lot of success if you do it. Yeah, it's alright. No worries. I'm just trying to read it going, that doesn't sound right. I don't know why. And I'm like, oh wait, it's just a grammar issue. But anyway, I don't know. Games are really interesting because of the fact that you have these very interesting challenges. And there's lots of successes that you can do in crazy creative directions that nobody's ever thought of yet. And that's why it's so exciting, because it's like, all you have to do is get good at understanding how to build the idea and then testing it. And then just once you get to a point where you can like test your ideas, then you can really start to feel like, oh, is this working? Does this feel like something that I would want to play more of? And it's a really creative but very complex kind of creativity, and it requires a lot of help. There's a lot of stuff you have to do to make a game. Extremely labor intensive. Daxter. I think I know what you're talking about. Favorite game of all time. Is that what the game's called, Jak and Daxter? Or is it, I thought it was gotta do these researches. That is what it's called. Alright. I have not played it because it looks like it's an exclusive to PS, and that explains why I haven't played it. Oh yeah, it's the game that Naughty Dog first developed. I did watch a documentary about that though. Yeah, I haven't played them, so I know they're popular. They must have a good storyline. Oh, here we go. I agree. I still block my scene, but I noticed more and more that I ended up straight ahead in it. Word. Midway through. Becomes a little bit messy. Yeah. See, if you do it right, you can make it work that way, and it works fine. I just find it's, especially in production, your vision isn't always going to match up with what other people's visions are of what you're doing. And so 9 times out of 10, you got to go back and you got to redo it. So what you want to do is try to get it so that you're getting feedback early, and when you do get feedback and they want you to change it, it's not a big pain to go back and change it. So if you can build up a workflow where, like in this case, where we have just a bunch of simple keys, like there's not much going on here, everything is keyed on those frames. So it's like, I know that 174, everything has a key, and I can just take that key and shift it. Although I must admit, when I tried to shift it the last time, the knees didn't come with me. It was super annoying. Oh, there it is. Oh, yeah, they worked this time. I don't know what that really is, just locked in. So for me, that's the workflow that is best, because then you're not worried about. So when you do straight ahead, you tend to like have, you know, the foot keyed here, and then the body was keyed there, and then, you know, 2 frames down, the other foot started key, and then this key, and you end up with this timeline that's all jumbled up, lots and lots of keys, and you really can't do much with that. Like you can try to separate it and figure it out, but it's going to take you so much longer than if you just had laid it out in a blocked format in the beginning. So is video games in the same category as animation? Well, I mean, it's interesting that you're trying to categorize them as if they're two things. I mean, there's definitely animation in games, and there's definitely animation as an independent thing. So it's a part of games. It can be the game if you do it that way. It's just there's definitely a career path as a game animator. There's a career path as a game cinematic animator. There's a career path as like a VFX animator, or even I don't know. I'm sure there's tons of like prop animators and all these other interesting but not so obvious animation roles. And then there's also, like, of course, 2D animation and stop motion animation. Like, there's tons and tons of directions you can go with it. And the nice thing is the base underlying skill is still animation, and you can carry that forward into different things. So if you're coming from a 2D animation background, you can actually do 3D animation, and you'll pick it up really quick. Like, I mean, once you get past the tool side of it, the technical aspect, in terms of the timing and knowing what you're going for and seeing it in your head and knowing what not to do, it's all the same. So you can really transfer that skill nicely. But yeah, it's mostly just the medium, the tools that you get the job done. I'm not sure if I'm answering the question anymore. It's like kind of just went on my own there. All right, so the idea was, I was gonna try and change the timing there a little bit at the end. As an animator who chooses a career path in games, I would say you have a huge scope that you could explore. Like, it is such a wider range, I feel, than in film. But it's definitely a lot messier and a lot more technical. So with film, it's pretty confined to a certain expected pipeline. But with games, it's like everybody's got a different flow. Every game has a different strategy or purpose or need, and there's lots of different like sort of categories of animators. Is it like technical animators and like rigging animators, but then there's also just straight ahead in-game animators, and then there's like mocap cleanup animators, and there's cinematic animators, and we're all pumping through a lot of content really fast. So it's quite a versatile and exciting career, really, once you get into it, because every week you're going to be working on probably something quite different than you were last week. I was trying to figure out which classes I should take. Oh yeah. So I see what you're saying. So if you're talking about the foundations course, there is at the moment 2 paths. There's the foundations VFX and the foundations for games. The first 2 terms of foundations are exactly the same. Doesn't matter which path you take. And so you're pretty open to switch in whichever way you want to go up until the end of term 2, and then you have to kind of pick. So do you want to take VFX? Then you're going to get a VFX mentor for term 3, and you're going to learn Houdini, and then you're going to learn Nuke, which is definitely sort of a filmy kind of path. Or if you want to take games, then you would be mentored by me, or maybe even Justin, who's our new mentor, who actually works at Epic right now. And so he or him would be teaching teaching how to use Unreal. But by the time you get to term 3, you've stopped using Maya. So really, for term 1 and term 2, you're learning Maya, you're learning some of the basics of how to animate, how to model, and the tools of what you would use to be able to do that. So very similar to what I'm doing here. And so that's kind of our foundation, like the basis. And even though you don't need to know that kind of information, if you're taking, like, I don't know, exploding house VFX, it may not necessarily be completely obvious that it's relevant. But in the industry, when you're in a studio, you've got to be able to discuss polygons, and you've got to be able to discuss animations and animation curves with the other coworkers. And so having an understanding of how that works, even if just it's sort of a very basic level, it will benefit a lot. Or just you at the interview, and you're talking to your employer about the things that you know or the things that you can contribute with, being able to say, oh yeah, no, I'm pretty familiar with how to use a graph editor animation, or I'm pretty familiar with how to model UVs and texture and stuff. Like, that is like major bonus points, because now it's like, oh good, if we're dry on VFX work, then maybe we can get you to help us out with some of the monotonous texturing work or something like that. I don't know, but it would make you a valuable person because you're a little more flexible. You're not just going to be sitting on your hands and you run out of work to do. That's why we do foundations. But it doesn't mean you have to take that if you're taking VFX. And if you're taking compositing, doesn't mean you have to take foundations to do compositing, like Nuke. You can go straight into foundations if you need to. But we like to see our students have that sort of nice, very, what's the word? Versatile skill set, so that they can be really useful and helpful in the industry, and it will help them, especially if they're trying to pivot their career path later on. It gives them a good perspective too of what they like doing and what they don't like doing. Houdini is definitely, I would say, a stage up from, like, in terms of difficulty and in terms of like just technical knowledge and stuff from what we're learning in the beginning of Foundations. So it's actually a nice ramp up as well, just to get you kind of used to especially if you're coming at it from really fresh, just get used to the flow of how to use 3D software, because every software package is going to have a lot of similarities. So the kind of things you do in Maya, you're going to be like, oh yeah, that's the same sort of thing you do in Houdini. It's not going to be exact, but it's going to be like, you're going to have already a head start of what to expect and what to look for when you're trying to find tools and do things. What about computer animation? Could I take that? Yes. That's what we're talking about. Computer animation was definitely what we're talking about. When we're talking about foundations and intro to animation, that is computer animation. That's 3D animation. 2D animation with Scott and Mike are it's a totally different course, and it's a different direction. And there are jobs in that career path. I just posted something today on Slack. Another was something I found on LinkedIn. Vancouver. Usually, like, a lot of them are in Vancouver. Let me see if I can get it. I have to get to it. There we go. So we had oh, and Maxine posted another one from Animal Logic. I don't know if that's 2D. That might be 3D. Anyways, Brain Wild. So, you know, there's definitely 2D jobs out there as well. It's definitely a thing. So, you know, it's good that we have a course that covers it, and you know, there's a growing need, I would even argue, of 2D in the marketplace nowadays, which is interesting because I guess people kind of are coming back to liking the style and the look, and you know, CG does get especially when you're talking about photoreal CG. I don't know. I have a lot of problems with comic book movies, and I know whenever I tell people this, they're always like, "You're an animator. What are you doing? You can't be angry about comic book movies." But I don't know. They drive me crazy. Like, I'm just like, I don't want to see any more of these. I'm done. I've had enough of that. I moved on. I don't know. It's just, I think it's because it's all magic. Like, that's the worst. Like, it was a bit like that Harry Potter too. It was all magic. And it was like, as a writer, you're kind of like unlimited options. It's like, well, geez, how am I going to get out of this problem? Well, I'll just use my magic wand and create some magic ability, and then I'll be able to get myself out of this problem. And you're just like, oh yeah, great. That was really amazing. And so I feel like that's almost the same argument when I talk about VFX in these films too, because it's like, you have such unbelievably amazing things happen that are so perfect. You're just like, yeah, right. I mean, that was convenient that you were able to flip the car over 5 times and land on their wheels. But you're just not quite as impressed because you're like, well, somebody obviously carefully planned that one out. Like, it wasn't a coincidence by any means. I still never understand. I know. Somebody told me, and I think Scott almost talked about this yesterday. It's like, Disney will keep making these movies as long as people keep showing up. So they'll make one too many. And then they'll stop making it. So it's like, once they realize they've made too many of them, then they'll stop. But as long as people keep showing up, keep paying money, they'll keep doing it. Which is hilarious, because it's like, I hope people enjoy it, because I'm always like, you look at the lineup of what's at the movie theater, and you're like, no. It's like, come on, it's got to be something. It's fun to watch. But there is no more movie theaters, so it's like the thing that's not happening anytime soon. Actually, it is technically happening here in Canada, but I don't really think it should be. Or you have to get rid of popcorn, which is like pretty much, I think, how movie theaters make their money, is with popcorn. So it's like, how are you supposed to wear a mask when you're eating popcorn? Well, I guess you have to get rid of the popcorn. I don't think that's gonna happen. Alright, I think I'm gonna try to put some poses in here. That was one thing I was gonna do. Funny how unproductive I get now with my Twitch streams. Get into conversations all the time. I couldn't watch either of the Lion King. Either of them. Can't deal with the music. Maybe I should watch it with the sound. I'm gonna try anime with the sound off. That's funny. That you are, like, you're talking about the 1995 or 4, whatever the time the original movie theater came out, or sorry, the original Lion King came out. Oh, where's my window here? Just trying to organize my windows and I got Bring back the drive-in. Apparently drive-ins are really successful right now, which doesn't really surprise me that much. They are very popular. Disney is gonna make so much that the bar for bad will be so low. Yeah. You really gotta like cheer for like the independents when you start seeing just how much ownership these monopoly media companies have. And you're just like, wow, they can pretty much have their grip on everything. Dad literally does this. He watches anime with the sound off. Interesting. And like with subtitles, I assume? Because I don't know how you're supposed to follow along. Not like you can lip read. Babysat a 3-year-old when the first one came out. So I didn't have to sit and watch it. Wow, you're babysitting a 3-year-old. I think I was in like... No, I'm not gonna talk about it. I like the first one. I mean, the second, the live action one was okay. I mean, the live action one, it was okay. But it's funny how you really need to like have that expressive emoting in order to sell the story. Otherwise, it's just kind of boring. Which is good for us animators, because it's like, yeah, we actually do something that's useful. Trying to figure out what I haven't read yet. Do you know any animators who worked in both movies and games? Jeremy. Jeremy's one of the few people I know who have resumes in both film and games. It was kind of, I think, more independent stuff, but like in terms of individual jobs, not like I worked for one studio and I worked for another studio. But maybe it was, I don't know. Jeremy's the from CG Spectrum. Jeremy Chin. Who else made it? I know. I don't know. Pretty rare, actually. Funny enough. Seems like everybody just sticks to one side or the other. It is a bit of maybe an intimidating challenge to switch. It was late 90s. Maybe it was a few years old. Okay, yeah. Late 90s, I can understand that. I would be babysitting too in the late 90s. Can't watch Disney movies now without cringing a little bit. I mean, for the kids. I've grown up, so that's probably the reason. Oh. It's for the kids, and I've grown. Yeah, I like watching how my kids decide what is fun to watch and what isn't fun to watch. And it's real night and day. Like, there's some movies that I'm like, I really want to watch this. I was really interested to see it. And they're just like, they have no time for it at all. But you know, Toy Story 4, the Toy Story 4, whatever the latest one was, they love that movie. Like, they've watched it like 4 times now, and they'll just sit through the whole thing. I'm like, what? This is so interesting. It's just like this movie that feels like it's got too many versions, and it was over, and the plot was kind of like, I had some problems with it because of the time frame didn't make any sense. But they just loved it. They sat through the whole thing. They really enjoyed the concept of, I guess, toys playing with each other. Really catches on. So it's kind of neat. But that was Pixar, so it's not really Disney. Although, to be fair, Disney makes pretty good movies sometimes. It hasn't been that bad. I was 17. I'm falling behind my chat here. I was 17-year-old playing fashion design student. Guitar playing fashion design student. I get it. I think Mark did a cinematic for a game. Oh, did he? Okay. Oh, maybe a cinematic. Yeah. See, there's a lot of cinematics for games that get outsourced to like Blur Studios, or some sort of like film or film-based, pipeline-based studio. So that's pretty common, and it's kind of hard to tell sometimes that. Well, I don't know if it's kind of hard to tell. It's pretty obvious. If it's extremely well done cinematic, it's probably not done in the game studio. It's done. They've paid like millions of dollars for another studio to do it for them, and that was very common. And I think that was part of the resentment that Ryan had back on Monday during his stream, because it's like that is an element that is very frustrating. You get this beautiful cinematic someone spent millions and millions of dollars on, and you're like, I don't even know what the game looks like. I mean, this is useless. And I totally agree with that. Mark mentioned he worked on Prototype. Not sure what Prototype was. Or Crisis. Okay, well, I know what Crisis is. That's interesting. Crisis is a fairly large title. Maybe they had a big cinematic for it. Can't remember. Have you seen this movie called Lion King and I? I have not seen it. Oh, sorry, not Lion King. The King and I. I have not seen it because neither of those things were recognized, but I'm definitely on a different track with The King and I. So let me go do a search. Falling behind on my message here. King and I. Oh, interesting. Oh, wait. Yes, hold on a sec. Wait. Assume that it's not the... Is it the 1956 musical Romance? Or is there a newer one? Because then definitely the answer is no. I'm not that much of a film buff. I gotta go to my next class. Cheers. Oh, alright. Sorry, Sarah. I may have missed that whole part. Good to chat, as usual. Yes, as usual, indeed. Wanted to mainly animate for games, but now I am getting right into animation with Mark. Films are also in sight. Yes. Well, I definitely keep your options open. I think there's lots of, and especially if you're living on that part of the world, you gotta sort of sometimes pick a path based on what's around you. But anyway, enjoy your class, Sarah. So what do we got here? John Skull says no traditionally animation from Warner Brothers. Traditional animation, okay. Trailer. 89. Don't recognize it. So interesting, but I missed that one. I would have been 18 or 19 at that age. So high school age. Although to be fair, when I got into college and around this era, I was definitely watching a lot of films because I was very interested in getting into animation at that point. So who knows, maybe I did watch it, but don't remember it, so it does look almost familiar. Yes, for example, that character. But I don't remember it having a lasting impression. You'll have to fill me in on terms of why it's a big and important film for you. John says, I mean, I sat through the prequels for Star Wars and looped it over and over on the TV. My parents probably got sick of it. Also, Simon, would you let your kids watch R-rated movies at a young age? Something like The Thing. No. I mean, no, not in such a hard no, but like a... he's only 5. So no. And then the other one's only, like, he's turning 3 next week. So, but it's, oh, there goes Sarah. See you, Sarah. Or maybe she's just saying cheers. You were a fetus in 99. That's funny. So going back to my kids, I think personally, there is a very difficult line for introducing them to things that will, basically traumatize them for like horror and stuff. And I'm not trying to like protect them from horror. I'm not trying to like stop them from experiencing these things, but I definitely don't want them to like innocently walk into it and then like realize that this was way deeper than they thought it was. So it's kind of like a balance point. I think the more interesting question is what kind of games will they be able to play, and I think that we're pushing that edge further than I was expecting, more so than the films, because there's so much TV shows and films that are like kids rated that that's not really an issue. But when he gets on the cell phone and he's playing games, like the advertisements and the games show up so easily, and then they just can click install and they get to it and they start playing it. Like, that's really hard to control. And luckily, like the marketplaces have it pretty limited, so you can't really get into like extreme games on Google's store. But there's still like, you know, shooting games and tank games and stuff. So it definitely goes. We've actually got it so that he comes over and asks me if I can install each game, and usually they're fine. But every once in a while, it's like, I don't know, man. That's a little heavy subject there. Ron Skull says, I know what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna take the introduction and take computer animation and VFX. There you go. I think that's the right choice, personally. I mean, I'm a little biased, I guess, because I also teach those classes. But although, to be honest, there's 3 other mentors now in our group, and they probably will be taking on the students, unless there's something that either we have an overflow or the time slot is weird. Then I usually take term 1 and 2, but I always take term 3 in video games. So in that case, I'm not going to see you because you're going to be going to the VFX mentor. So you might be with you'll be with one of the VFX guys. But it doesn't matter really, because I'm always available on Slack, and you can always ask me questions, and I am more than happy to answer. So I am kind of there in a way, but your Q&As or likely will be with either Rob, Alex, or now Justin, who's the although yeah, maybe with Justin. Less so Justin, because he's still part-time. Wow, okay, so we got Razzie17. Hi. Glad to see you're here again. And good morning. Yes. It's not like the 90s was so easy. I wonder what conversation I was saying at that point. This is related to the King and I trailer. I have to think more about game design because I don't have any ideas for Not to worry. Ideas for games it has no value. You will discover. It's more about implementing the idea that has value. Everybody has a game idea. There's probably lots of brilliant game ideas, but implementing it is by far the wall everybody collides into and can't get over. So figuring out how to get over that wall is really the key to success, and really the interesting story. So that's what we're trying to do in our course. The parents were like, nah, screw it, go watch Scarface. Oh my goodness. But the moment an inappropriate scene pops out, they hit pause. I'm just left in confusion as a kid because I just watched another guy. And then you pause to dwell on it. Alright, so by what you said, it's reconfirming my my thought process of how to deal with children in horror. So don't screw them up by making them watch somebody's perverted thought process of what humans should see and witness in a film. Trying to catch up to whatever I can. Ah, yes. What about the kid and game? Yes. Oh, I just finished talking about kid and games, and how that is actually much more of a difficult barrier to control, I found, because he can pretty much pick whatever, he just picks whatever advertisement pops up on his phone when he's playing on the phone, and it's very hard to stop him from picking violent. He loves the violent games. I mean, stickman fights with like bow and arrows and shooting, and man, those are like his best games. And like, I'm like, dude, really? You want the one that has the blood animated? That's just not necessary, but he loves it. It's his best thing. Oh, somebody just said followed. Very good. And I don't know who it is. Oh, Sherlock. Home Dog. Home Dog. Very good. Thank you for following. For us at CG Spectrum. We appreciate that. I'm just busy reading this thing over here. Why are you biased? Oh man, now I've lost track of that conversation. You'll have to remind me what it was. I mean, I think every part is art is similar. Art is similar. I think so. Every part is similar. Oh, okay, I see. You have a vision, great. Coming to creation isn't easy. Yeah, you're right. No, totally agree. But with games, it's really hard to like get all the departments together. With film, you got a camera, start recording, you got some shots, pause it together, and you have a film. It's not that easy, but you've practiced and you've learned something. But with games, it's like you got to get the functionality working, you got to get the aesthetics working, and then you got to get like it compiled, and then you got to get it so that someone can actually play it, and then you got to get testing on how they played through it, and then you got to tweet. Like it's just such a big hurdle to get to a point where you've actually got a game that's enjoyable. Can't say anything about that, but just the idea to experience something. Oh yes, parenting decisions. It's definitely something I'm learning about. I mean, we all learn eventually, but having a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, it's just getting into it. Like we're just learning the process of how complicated it's gonna get, especially when it comes to like addictive video games. That is a whole nother conversation about things that I don't think is easy to avoid. I think it's designed to be a trap for people, and the kids are very easy to fall in that trap. So as a parent, you really gotta make sure you're there to give them support and understand that that this is a challenge point for them. And I haven't done it yet, so I'm only just estimating. It's an animation VFX. You said you were biased. Oh yeah, biased because I teach that stuff. Oh, you asked why? Yeah, because I'm the head of foundations, so it's like that's my department. so if you want to take foundations, animation, and VFX, then I'll be like, yeah, that's a good idea. But I genuinely mean it. But I am biased. Don't know how to handle it as a parent one day. Yeah, I know. I don't think anybody knows, and it changes so fast. It's so hard to like figure out what the right plan is. There's lots of discussion I can do on that theory. I have lots of thoughts, but I again haven't really experienced it beyond the age of 5. How lenient my parents were when I watched. My wife has the same thing. Has the same story. She's like, we watched really bad horror movies when I was really young, and it really was quite disturbing. And now she's quite afraid of like things. So I don't know if that's a connection or whether she's genetically dispositioned to be afraid of like she gets scared, like zombies are going to come into her bedroom or something. I'm like, it's okay, zombies are not going to come into your bedroom. But I don't know, they're kind of funny. But today when I got my first PC, my first game, Postal. Oh my goodness, Postal? Is that the one where you go around and like it's like highly politically incorrect? I actually played that too. You like do everything, shooting people and that are innocent, and everything that you're not supposed to do. That was a really bad game. I remember that really changed the benchmark of what games do. 10 to 12 years. Oh, okay. All right, so 10 to 12, you were watching horror movies. That's I totally think that's still a very manipulative of age range, you know, like it's still, that'll like mess you up if you're in a dark place and you're thinking of memories of horrible movies and you're like, that's really messed up right now. I know that that's usually what happens to me when I was that age and it was outside and it was dark. You must let your kids play Age Escape or Mario and spare them from the horror that is Fortnite. Oh yes. No Fortnite. Yeah, they are way not going to be old enough for Fortnite. I don't know why Fortnite somehow escapes everyone's consciousness that it's still people sniping other people to death. I don't know. For some reason it's acceptable because it's all stylized, but it is a bit strange when you're walking in like a grocery store and the kids are like, I don't know, like 8 years old and they're talking about their experiences playing Fortnite. And you're like, I don't know if you should be playing Fortnite. That seems a little bit inappropriate. The good thing you said I can do computer and whoa. The good thing, like you said, I can do computer animation in many different fields. I agree. Okay. You can use animation in many different fields. I get it, I get it. I know where you're at. And you're right. It is quite an interesting skill. It's not for everybody though. A lot of people find animation quite difficult, but also boring. Like it's frustrating, I guess is the word. And I find we get about 70%, 80, maybe 80% of our students from Foundations take modeling, or at least take another direction. We do have an Intro to Animation course, though, that's separate from Foundations. So you have Intro to Animation, you have Foundations, which does Intro to Animation and Intro to Modeling for the first 2 terms, and then you have Intro to Modeling. So there might be a good reason why we don't get a lot of people taking animation when they take Foundations, because they're actually just taking the Intro to Animation, which you would have Mark as your instructor for that. But, or, you know, one of the other, we've got quite a few animation mentors now, 7, I think. They're not all full-time, but you might get one of the other ones. So I don't know where I was going with that. Oh, it just seems like a lot of people tend to find modeling a lot more comforting to get into. And I think that's kind of a good warning sign for you if you're looking as a career path that modeling is where a larger portion of the population head towards, and like their vision is usually like character modeling, so a lot of people head in that direction, and so it ends up being quite an oversaturated market, from what I've been told and from what I've experienced. So it's, you know, I always try to encourage people in Foundations to really open up your mind to all the different elements that you can choose from in the industry. There's lots of micro career paths that if you can find a career path that fits well with what you like doing and is underappreciated, then you won't have any problems finding work because there'll be like tons of demand. Usually those are in technical fields, I find. If you have like a skill set that you like doing technical stuff, you can find work pretty easily. I'm in 3D modeling because I had some experience in that field. Seems like it was a good market, so yeah, I'm not saying that there isn't jobs in modeling, but there is a conflict of modeling can be outsourced easily, so it's difficult to find. Like if I go to the modeling jobs category on our Slack, there's plenty of jobs. Like this was all from, this is in one, is this all one day? Holy cow. July 8th. Whoa, no, I just jumped ahead here. There's usually quite a lot. But this seems like too many. Where does it split up? There we go. July 13th. Oh, I guess that wasn't today. That was a few days ago. But when it last did the post, there was quite a lot of modeling jobs. So it's not like there isn't work. It's just there's a lot of people looking for that same type of job. So they're looking for usually senior positions, or at least, you know, you're going to have like the people that are applying are going to have a fair bit of experience. You got to work really hard to get yourself to a point where that path is going to land you a job. And I think that's where a lot of people fall short. They don't realize how much commitment you have to do to keep up with the competition. What exactly is modeling? Wow, okay, so if you... Modeling is just basically building the geometry for your... like, this is an animation rig, but the geometry that is shaping that rig is a model, and this mesh, even though it was a mega scan, is technically a model. So anything that requires polygons is a job of a modeler to create, and then texture and prepare or sculpt. Like, there's all kinds of different ways that you can model besides just polygons. Polygons and lots of polygons. That's eventually, if you're talking about video games, they all end up as polygons. So yes. Well, it's actually BSP brushes. I'm going to environment and props to start with. Oh yeah, right. So environment modeling is a little different and is kind of interesting because, well, wait a minute. Are you talking about film or games? Because they're two different pipelines. I guess I'll need to wait to get to that channel up. Oh, yes. Let me talk about this. Anybody who is in CG Spectrum and has access to our internal Slack workspace, if you ever wanted to change or add yourself to these channels, so all these channels here are the ones that have little hashtags, are all public, so you could find them if you wanted to. They're not hidden by any means. But if you wanted to be part of some of them, so if you're a modeler, you can go down here to shortcuts and you can say my user info, and it will open up a modal, which is something that I scripted for the school just in the last 6 months. And there's a section, well, you won't be able to see the top part, but you'll see the user profile, and there's a section here for add and remove yourself from user groups, and you can add yourself to any user group you want. And there's no restriction. We're definitely, encouraging people to do this for themselves. But if you add yourself to modelers, then you will suddenly be invited to all the modeling related library channels and the modeling jobs channel. And anybody who ever types in @modelers will notify you, and anyone else who's in there. So I also encourage people to use these, what are the handlers, or what are they called? I don't know what they're supposed to be called, but that's a great way to get a hold of specifically just the people that are in there in that particular section. So there you go. I never actually talked about that before, but I definitely encourage everyone to try it out. I did the foundations course as I wasn't sure between the three, and it made me sure I want to do animation. Ah, interesting. Super excited for my third semester as the trimester. As the quadrupeds and animals is definitely what I'm most passionate about. Very good. So you're taking advanced animation now? Is that what's going on? You did the foundations course and now you're taking advanced animation, and you're in the third term of advanced animation? Wow, very good. You're moving along pretty good then. Oh, is it Kirsty? Is that who it is? Maybe. I'm just gonna guess. Can't really tell, but if that's the case, then hey, welcome. Thanks for showing up. Yay, there we go. Nice. Yes, now I know what you're talking about. And I know who you are, because you were my student when we were in foundations. Thanks for the info. Very good. Get it done. All right. Instantly 50 notifications. There. So you did it properly. That means it worked. Yeah, I forgot to give you that warning that once it happens, you get lots of Slack notifications because they go, let's add you to 50 channels all at once. And I mean, I have plans of how I'm going to deal with this. I don't want to just kind of hide it from everybody forever, but I would like to make it so that it's more of an organic introduction, because when people first use Slack, they're just overwhelmed already. Like all you have access is to the general channels and then to your class channels. And we just want you to be able to find your class channel and contribute to the general channels, and that's fine. And then later on, after you're getting a little more comfortable with how to use Slack, then let's introduce you to the library channels and the job channels and stuff, and building across. So I'm looking for a way to be able to kind of introduce this concept to students after they've kind of been enrolled for a while. And I can do that with the Slack bots and kind of do onboarding, special onboarding stuff. So I will get to that. But like all that stuff didn't exist 3 months ago. So like this is all very new for everybody. So it's not like we're trying to hide it from anyone. The sound got you out of the channel from the Slack notification. So yeah, I know. Every time I do that for students in the Q&A, they always go, whoa, and then I get to see their expression. I kind of feel bad. I wish I could, you know, make it less extreme, but I don't know how to do that. What does the computer animation course teach you? What's terms? So now you're talking about intro to animation, 3D animation, I guess you should say, and I can tell you about that because I happen to know that subject quite well. I'll even show you the Canvas page. So this is the Canvas page that students will use when they are looking for the content that we teach. It would be the recorded content. And so intro to animation term 1. And this is the teacher's view, so it's a little more complex, but basically it's the same what the students see. And so we have a bunch of different weeks here, 12 weeks for term 1. A lot of introduction stuff to, you know, getting used to how to use Maya, getting used to how to use rigs, posing, timing, spacing, all that kind of stuff. It really is just a process of building up the elements of animation. And it's, you know, you'll probably know by the end of term 1 whether you're kind of digging this or not. And then in term 2, we've kind of already at that point established a lot of the principles, and now we're just focusing on building up more interesting, like basically just polishing body mechanical animation, which is a whole complicated thing to learn. So we have a lot of weeks just focused on, let's just practice these skills. Let's practice how to do walks and run, well, more walks and runs, but like lifting weights, combat, fight scenes, kind of stuff that really requires a lot of body motions. We're not even talking about facial stuff yet. We're not talking about like quadrupeds and all that kind of thing, because it's just, there's animation is, I think in the animation handbook or whatever it is, one of the famous books by Richard Williams, is like, it takes 8 years to consider yourself an advanced animator or you know, a complete animator. And it does take a lot of years. It's crazy. Like, and you know, you think, oh, I got the body animation figured out. Now it's like, oh, and then facial animation is a whole different practiced skill set, and people become real experts in just doing facial stuff. And so, oh, we got another follow. Very good. Slime in body. Very good. Thank you for the follow. CG Spectrum thanks you. So yeah, it's a very deep skill set, and you know, by the end of Introduction to Animation, 2 terms, you will have enough knowledge to really have a good sense of what animation's like, and you'll have enough stuff that actually you can put together a demo reel. But there's still so much more to learn. Like, there's still a lot of different complex directions you can go, and you can become very specialized animator in various directions. So hopefully that will be enough information. Years. Yeah, when I read that too, I thought the same thing. But you know, after 8 years goes by, you're like, yeah, I still got a lot of learning to do. So it is quite believable. Although to be fair, my career path has been, it started off very much animation based, and then it slipped into technical animation within like the first 4 years of my career. So it's and you can really see how, like, the more hats you wear, the more spread you are, the less skills you have, less hyper skills you have, and so you really start to like become watered down. And that's just true for everything. It doesn't matter what you do. A generalist will be a very watered down artist in a lot of different directions, and you know, it is useful to have somebody who knows a lot of different things, but there is also a lot of use to have someone who's just hyper good at one thing. They just come through it and do amazing work. It flies super fast. It does, especially when you start counting how many years have gone by. Kind of, it's a bit creepy. I'm getting pretty close to being 20 years in the industry, which is a little scarier than I'd like to think. You prepare one stream with materials in Unreal. Interesting. Yeah, for sure I can do that. Jack of all trades, master of none. Yeah, I say that all the time to students. I say it to myself because I'm like, I am the worst of this. Like, I am definitely one of these people of jack of all trades, master of none. I mean, the fact that I just showed you how I did all the scripting for Slack. I mean, like, I learned how to script in JavaScript in January, and it's like, I'm gonna learn how to do this, and then, like, so now I'm a mediocre JavaScripter as well, as opposed to, I'm mediocre at using Slack API, but it's by no means a master. I like how I got a request to do something different in Unreal next time. I definitely will. Like, I'm so unproductive nowadays in these streams. I'm glad I did some work before the stream just so that I had something a little more different to show. I mean, to be fair, we're actually getting pretty close to a point where the shot can be blocked out and ready to move on anyway. So maybe we'll find an excuse why we can work with materials and try to introduce that next time. Oh my goodness, you want to talk about trim sheets? Wow, okay. Yeah, so the whole concept of trim sheets is actually quite advanced, and it's a complicated theory, so I understand why you have that question. And it's not something that like, we're talking about second stage of how to do materials in the editor. I don't even cover that in the Unreal course that I teach. I was going to talk about that, but I don't even cover trim sheets because it's like, that's getting into advanced environment modeling technique, which I don't want to try to act like I know what I'm talking about in that front. On the advanced side, anyway. I want to do computer animation and VFX because I want to use it for film. Yeah, well, that's totally fair. I think you'll find VFX is overwhelmingly it's a lot to learn, basically. So if you ever get into Houdini, you'll realize Houdini is actually a substantially complicated software to learn, and it requires a lot of commitment to get your head around it. So I'm giving you a heads up on that one, not to discourage you, but to prepare you that is something you really need to like buckle down and get into it hardcore. So I know how to create. Oh, you want trim sheets again? I have just an issue. Use it in Unreal with more options. Yeah, see, you're already ahead of me on that one, so I'm not going to be able to help you. This is why we need. Oh, actually, if Justin does streams, well, Justin isn't probably going to do streams, but he's the guy that works at Epic, and he just started last week at CG Spectrum. He comes from a modeling background, and he's a producer now, but he probably would have a lot better advice for trim sheets than I will ever be able to give you, because it's just like, it's another department, and I can't. It's just like Unreal is too big for one person to know, and that's everyone, like, that's a well-known, even in Epic, nobody's master of everything, and this is just environment art, material stuff. I would like to know that, but it's just like it's one of these skill sets that are a little too deep for me right now. Have that in my introduction. Okay, I'm not sure how to answer that one. Went into Houdini today. Oh, Houdini we're talking about. I'm gonna just go back to this drawn skull in a sec. For 5 minutes, I decided to leave it for now. Oh, I see what we're talking about. Yeah, we need to get Justin in here. We could do an interview, maybe. It'd be kind of fun. Oh man, that guy has lots to talk about. Maybe I'll bring it up next time. I mean, next week I'm on holidays, so it'll be a couple weeks at least. But I'll bring it up with him, and maybe he'll be up for it. We can just have a chat, and maybe he can help show some stuff just for a one-off. That way I don't have to like burden him too much because he's just part-time. Let me go back to Drone Skull. Is the modeler the person who models the characters for film too, or is that someone else? Okay, so you have character modelers and you have prop modelers and environment modelers and hard surface modelers. Like there's all kinds of different types of modelers. So character modelers is a very specific skill set, and they usually have their own department and they're in their own little thing in, well, game studios anyways. At film, apparently you jump around a bit more, but for games it's like I am a character artist and this is my team and we all make the character art. But from my experience, it's like the people that get into the character artist jobs are very much advanced and senior roles because it requires such a high level to be in-house in the studio doing the modeling work. They end up being like the best of the best to do the hero characters, the main characters for the game, and then we would outsource all the other characters because they would be lower priority, and we could find people that are not necessarily in the studio that could do that modeling. So I think this Rocksteady had a team of like 4 or 5, maybe 5 or 6, I don't know, of modelers, but they were all very advanced modelers, like the senior modelers for sure. And they were really good. Like, you start talking to these guys and you're like, whoa, here, fast. I read these one already, so it'll be awesome. Same here. I was learning how to model a character, code in Python, and animate. Yeah, that sounds familiar. Eventually just sat there and thought, what are you doing? You haven't even finished your animation and you're trying to drown yourself in 2 other things. Yeah. So what we recommend for students is don't do that. We say pick a path. I mean, there's arguments to say that you should do this, but I've had a bad experience when I was getting in the industry where I picked a path like that and it didn't work out. My demo reel coming out of college had everything, including 2D animation. And I didn't get hired anywhere. I might have gotten hired at the original Hoodwinked movies, it was being made in the Philippines, and I declined it, which I actually really regret. I think I should have went for it. It would have been kind of very interesting to see where that would have led me. But anyway, I didn't take it because I didn't know what Hoodwinked was. I'd never heard that one before. It was the first iteration. I didn't realize that it was going to actually be a successful movie. Irrelevant. So I got out of college, had this demo reel of everything, didn't get me hired. I had to go and spend a year afterwards just animating game animation, just focusing solely on that. I joined a mod team and we worked on, so I was able to actually like work with programmers and contribute. So that I was able to have a demo reel that actually was just focused in one area, and I got hired. So that really made a difference. And I try to push that on students as well. Like, you could spend your whole life trying to be a generalist of everything and not get paid for it at home, or you could just get really good at the one skill, get into the door of a studio, start getting paid, and then you can be a generalist, because now you're getting paid and you're becoming more useful for the company and you're kind of learning from the people around you, which is really a big thing. Like, if you're your best source of education is going to be in a studio. We try to do our best to teach you as well as we can, but realistically, your speed of learning inside a studio is just way further. It's like insane. Everybody is so good, and they teach you, and you learn. You're just like a sponge. So our goal is mostly just trying to make sure you figure out what it is you like doing, and then we go, all right, pick that path. You take the advanced modeling, advanced animation, advanced VFX, or compositing, and we're really actually trying to push more people to take the compositing course, because there is a lot of work in compositing. Well, maybe not right now so much, but it's one of these paths where not many people realize that it is actually like a job and an employable job and in demand. It's just not very easy to sell. And so anyway, and we have an advanced course for it. So like this is actually a pretty decent, like if you're finding learning Houdini is extremely overwhelming, well, honestly, compositing is like a very doable path that is employable. But hard to convince people of that, because it's not quite as flashy as blowing stuff up. Right. Nice. Very good. Can't quite remember what part you're talking about, but I assume that we're on the same page. Matte painting is epic. Ah, very interesting. Yes. I mean, I know nothing about that, but I know that, but I'm very happy to hear that you're getting that thumbs up. I'm not very familiar with the concept department. So yeah, the whole like art department is definitely separated from us, because we're just, our skill sets don't really complement each other as obvious. There is definitely probably somewhere places that you can complement. The prerequisites to getting these courses are not really connected. A lot is going on. You talking about new compositing? Yeah, well, any kind of, yeah, new compositing is usually the traditional software, from my understanding. This is very far from my comfort zone, new compositing, because like it's totally just a film-based workflow. There's no compositing required in video games, so I know very little about this stuff. But yeah, that's the course we would be teaching, and yeah, we have quite a few mentors that are, you know, very relevant in the industry right now that can teach it. What is your popular class at CG Spectrum? I think the most popular class is concept art. We always joke about it. We're like, wow, we got a lot of enrollments this month. It's great, yay! Like, all right, how many enrollments are in concept art? It's like, oh, okay. There's a significant portion of people take concept art, which I don't really recommend, but I do appreciate people who are very like interested in upping their skill set in that direction. But I find that a very difficult path to take to get a career path out of. Yeah, right. Interesting that concept art is quite popular. Yeah, modeling is second, I would say. I would easily say definitely modeling, and then animation would be third. And so we're trying to work on game design, because that's our new course. It started in January, and that's getting more and more numbers. But I think our dead last is compositing. So, and it's a shame, because there's plenty of compositing jobs. I jump back to my handy dandy Slack and check out our compositing jobs for the week. I can remember where the job sections are. Oh, look, we got new jobs. They all just posted up. Yeah, it's awesome. My auto script pulling off new jobs. Let's see what we got here. So here's our compositing jobs. We got, this one's a cinematic artist in Unreal, so this is in the wrong category. Sometimes it's really hard to filter them properly, because it's like, oh, cinematic artist, what? Yeah, we got lots of layout, compositing, lighting. So these are all the compositing jobs that posted as of today, as of right now, July 16th. So quite a few jobs there. If we look at, well, animation, quite a few. See, 2D animation, they're all in there. 2D, 3D, quite a lot. Quite a lot. Modeling, what we got? Quite a lot of modeling. And VFX, quite a lot of VFX. There's plenty of stuff. And then technical. I always try to push for technical. I mean, they're really hard jobs, but like, how many technical jobs came up? Technical artists, rigging artists, lots of jobs there too. So I'm trying to figure out where I was in the reading here. I expected to be. I was gonna say either animation or game design. Yeah, game design might become popular later, but it's such a new course. We really need to demonstrate that it's a good course and have our graduates kind of show. It's the same thing as when we started all the other courses. They always start slow, then eventually some people come out and they give good reviews, and then people trust it and they go through it. So it takes some time to build it up. Quite a few in Germany. I wonder what that means. Oh, a few jobs in Germany. Yes, these are great because they're all over the world, and you can see where all the jobs are. I do notice sometimes that there's a lot near where I live, near Toronto. Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver. There's some in all over the place, but my eyes are always like, oh, what's in Toronto? Oh, interesting. Oh, you're close to Germany. Interesting. Okay, with the Venom movie, when Eddie transforms into Venom, what example is that? VFX, animation, or CGI? Okay, so it's a transformation, I assume, of characters. That would definitely be VFX animation, like VFX plus animation. And a CGI is just computer graphics. I don't see how that would be a separate category. But that would be totally a VFX job, VFX type of thing. Hey, we got another follower. Very good. S2A Winnery. It's kind of hilarious saying these names. Thank you for following. CG Spectrum appreciates it. Very good. Awesome, actually. All of them Liquid Sims and Venom. When I was yummy. When I was working at Rocksteady, we did the transformation sequence of Clayface to Joker, and that was one of the things I had to take on. And I mean, when you're talking about video game pipelines, it's totally different than film. And this is also like 2012, so we're talking almost a decade ago now. It's kind of scary, but it was quite interesting how that whole thing. And to be honest, there is a VFX department. They didn't really have anything to do with that transformation sequence, but it was a lot to do with a technical artist, Joel, who had a lot to do with getting the materials to look right as we did transformation. But we, as an animation cinematic team, we're the ones that did a lot of the R&D and figured it out. It was through a series of morphs, and we had a crazy blend ramp that would pass through the body so that you would be one character, and it was just like a tessellation morph from one character to the next while it was doing an animation. So it was pretty complicated, really, but it worked out. We got it figured out, and that was just animation team. But yeah, like I said, it's totally different pipeline when you're talking about games. It's like, this is why I think I said this in the beginning of the stream, was like, games I find are much more exciting because you're just never sure what your challenge is next going to be. It's very like dynamic all the time. Not to say that it isn't like that in film, but I don't know. Just there's a lot less people taking on a lot more work, I find, in games. And I read everything. Yay. All right. And without anything else to read, I just keep animating. I don't know if, so, like, oh yeah, so I got this thing. And it's ability, it's selected. Oops, grab two things. So we got our scene in sequencer, and last week I couldn't get my scene to export into sequencer at the very end of the stream, and it turns out it was just because I had the wrong source file that I was pulling from. So that was a simple fix. I just went into the animation and changed the source file location, and then we were able to get it to work. So there was another issue that I ran into. Can't remember what it is that I solved, which was interesting as well. There, you said something. Very good. You got me wanting to create video games. There you go. See? Very manipulative. Well, I mean, again, I'm biased in this subject because I am fully invested into it, but just where the whole Unreal Engine is going with, like, being able to take on the pipelines that you see in film much more possibly now than ever before. Just, I feel like time invested into learning how to use Unreal is going to be way more valuable than you can see from the current point of view. Like, I think that there's going to be invested value for future jobs and future just being able to accomplish tasks that, you know, even if it's your own personal projects. Like, I think there's a lot of benefit to learning it. And like sequencer, right here, this thing. Like, I think not only am I making the film, but in potentially the near future, you're going to actually be animating in sequencer, which is going to be quite a big shift if that ends up being a pipeline that gets adapted. It may not, but if it does, it'll be amazing. My whole has been to movies, video games, and animation. Yeah, in theory, you can do all of them in Unreal, but I mean, I don't necessarily I'm not trying to say that at all. You definitely want to pick something that's achievable and achieve it, and then pick something that's achievable again and achieve it. Half-finished products don't really have much value. Finished products have a lot more. So make sure that whatever it is you decide to do, that you're going to be able to hit the finish line. And even if it's like, it feels very short, it takes at least twice as long to do than you're predicting. I mean, you do that when you're trying to like schedule projects. It's like, this project's going to take a week. Well, you should say it's going to take 2 weeks, because it's probably going to take more than a week. At least. Sometimes they say even more than that. But no. Just be prepared that you're always going to run into problems. It's always going to be a bit slower than you expect. So don't try to bite off this huge project, because it's probably not going to work out, and it's going to leave you frustrated and discouraged. And there's a lot of good things to learn when you finish a project. You're really able to sit back and assess it and learn from it. Now, Unreal and Megascans. Yeah, that Megascans thing came out of nowhere. It was pretty crazy. Like, it's funny how I was just getting into it in September last year, and we were like registering for a school license so that we could start incorporating into our pipeline for our teaching. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, everything's free. What? And it really has changed everybody's outlook of how to do how to create stuff now, because it's like, oh geez, if you just needed something that looks like real life, then maybe you can just throw in some Megascans. What is the best class that you have for creating video game? I will show you that, and I will also read the other comments here. I found somehow I found him and somehow got a subscription. Okay, so you're subscribed. Nice. Since then, I have it all the time in my mind. Yeah, right, as an option. Now, just to be clear, if you're using Unreal and you're using Quixel Megascans, it does not cost you any money. And I'm only saying that because some people, when you first go to the website, it's not clear that that's the Watch Dogs thing. It's not clear that that it's free, and it is only for people that use it in Unreal. But in theory, and I'm not saying this is allowed because in the contract it says you're not supposed to do this, but with the Epic license or with the Epic account that you log into Quixel with, which gives you access to all the Quixel Megascans, you can download them, and it just downloads FBXs and texture files. It's not like it's locked to Unreal, it's just an FBX file. So you can, in theory, import that into Maya, and you can apply the textures to it. And it didn't cost you anything. So the only thing is you're not allowed to use it because you're contractually not allowed to. But if you use it in Epic and you use it in Unreal, then you can use it for your final project. And you can sell it and distribute it, and it's totally legal, which is amazing. So getting back to Drawn Skull's question here. A bit familiar with Quixel plugin for Photoshop, subscription for materials mostly. Didn't even know there was a plugin for Photoshop, so I am clearly not familiar with the new things changing in Photoshop. Even though I have it on my computer, I only use it to scan documents. I don't really use it for anything else other than that. Any kind of texturing stuff, I would be jumping into Substance Painter. Oh, that's awesome. So you lost all your work because of a blackout? So, okay, so here's a funny story. I was in the middle of a Q&A, so I bought one of those was it PSUs, the power supply battery backups that you use to keep your computer running when there's power failure, because, you know, sometimes I'm in a Q&A. For example, right now, if the power went out, I think the stream would still work because I've got enough to be able to keep the internet going. Anyway, so there's one Q&A, it happened, the lights went out, and I was like, hey, look, I'm still working, and it's still good. And then the power came back on, and I was going back to work. Turns out there was like tornadoes happening outside. I didn't know about. I wake up in the morning like a tree has fallen over my neighbor's yard, and there was like tornadoes that touched down nearby. And I'm like, wow, that was a bit dangerous. Like completely oblivious to the extreme weather that was going on outside. There was a moment where my wife opened the door and looked really panicked and worried, and I was like, no, it's fine, the power just went out. But I didn't quite clue in that you may have been trying to tell me something else. Yeah, that was my funny story. That just happened like, I don't know, less than a month ago. It's being replaced by Mixer now. Oh, okay, that's cool to know. So there's no more Photoshop plugin. It's just gonna be Mixer, which is technically, yeah, it sounds like it would be like a competitor to that plugin Photoshop connection there, because it literally does the same thing. I have no clue how it goes with my lifetime license. So your lifetime license is with Quixel probably, right? So then if that's what it is, then you're good to go. Because Quixel makes Mixer for free. You don't have to pay for Mixer. You don't have to pay for Bridge either. Those are both free softwares. Lights came back on and my stream has stopped. Oh, okay. Well, you didn't miss anything. Well, maybe you did. I don't know. I don't know how long you were gone for. Anyway, all it was just my silly story about tornadoes. Nothing important. Nothing worth missing. Mixer is for free during the beta. I think Mixer is always free. I mean, I don't think you have to pay for it. I'm still trying to get to Drawn Skull's question here. I will get to it, I swear. Products. Mixer. Download for free. I'm pretty sure it's always free. I don't think you need to have a special sign-in. All right, so to answer Drawn Skull's question before it leaves my screen, what is the best class that you would have for creating video games? At the current state, well, okay, first of all, I guess the question should be, what type of career path are you talking about? Are you talking about the artistic side of creating video games, which is literally just, you know, building the art assets, which is what I do? And the answer to that is it's within the Foundations course under Term 3. You get Games Introduction. No, that's the wrong one. That's Introduction to Programming. Not there yet. You get Game Production, which is for artists. And it's the course that I created and I teach. And basically we cover all the different art departments of Unreal and the pipelines and the workflows so that by the end of the course, you have a pretty good idea of the different departments, how to get stuff, like how to get the basics done. We don't really go into too much depth of anything because I don't really think it's fair that everyone has to learn everything. So from there, you should be able to say, I want to know more about environment art. And then you would take what you know, go and find resources. I know Unreal Academy has some amazing free resources and keep continuing to learn in that skill set. So this is the only course that we have currently for, at least with CG Spectrum, for learning Unreal from an artistic perspective. And it's incorporated with the Foundations so that you take the intro to animation, intro to modeling, and then you get to do the Unreal so that you have a nice full tool set where you can create assets, bring them in Unreal, and create animations, bring them in Unreal, and know that whole pipeline. And that alone gives you a lot of power, of strength, a lot of ability to create, like, you know, you can just go running after that for sure. So we don't have any advanced Unreal course because, to be quite honest, it's really complicated to do because it's changing so fast. We need mentors that are really specifically catered to that particular area that we're teaching. And I just don't think it's right to teach everybody everything of Unreal because it's just not realistic. The autosave for the win. So the other courses, if you're not interested in doing the art side of it, there is game design, which is for people who are doing game design, like building the games, game designers. And they don't learn about the art side so much, they just learn about the theory-based of game. And you don't need any prerequisites to get into game design. You can just start up, and it's taught by Troy. And we have a couple of game design mentors, and that's a fairly new program, but Troy has like 25 years, or I don't even know, he's shipped like 100 titles or something. He's got crazy experience, so he can get into the details of all these different theories. And that's definitely not an area that I'm going to try and claim that I know very much about. And that's a whole different career path. And then there's game programming, which is the one I accidentally clicked on. For some reason, I have it in my canvas, even though I don't teach C++ programming at all because I do not know that language. And this is also a new course that we offer where you can learn how to do the back-end programming in Unreal to make games. And that is a different skill altogether too, but also a very powerful one. And if you are interested in doing programming for Unreal, it gives you, it's a very noble and interesting career path that has plenty of jobs. And like our I don't think our Slack jobs channel for programming gives it justice for what is actually happening out there. This is all coming from a spreadsheet that's more designed for artists, but they still sometimes post programming jobs. But like, if we can find a spreadsheet that has programming jobs, we would definitely put that in here because this is by no means the there's plenty of programming jobs going on right now. Let me just catch up here. Design and game art, characters, environment. Oh, design the game art, characters, environment. Yeah, so you're definitely on the art side of Unreal. So at least I explained all these other different departments and how they work, but you would definitely want to be taking Foundations, game, and you would learn the whole stages up to Unreal, and then you would learn Unreal. We are talking about changing it up so that people who already know how to do modeling animation can just jump into Unreal, and we do have that flexibility if anyone ever requests that. And we're also talking about doing a game production 02, which we're still trying to figure out how exactly we're going to present that, but you know, these are all things that we're thinking about because we know people want it, We just don't really know how to do it because we don't want to give them something that doesn't have value. We want to make sure that if we're going to put out a course, that it's the right kind of thing for people being able to get employed for. And the game art characters. Yeah, I only read the art characters. Yeah. Well then, that is definitely the path. I'm not changing my opinion on that. I want them all. That's hilarious. Yes, I know it's tempting. I do agree with you. But that is why when you work at a studio, you have a team of like 100 people, and everybody's got these skill sets, and you're just like you're bouncing your ideas off each other, and then everybody gets to make this awesome project because you're like, here, you take care of that part, I'll take care of this part, and then we'll meet back up. And that's why working in the games I find really fun. It's like all this like creativity and thought and learning, and everybody's trying to strive to make really awesome stuff. Yes, try your best to stay on one path until you get hired. Once you're getting paid, then feel free to explore. That's what I did anyways. When I was working at Silicon Knights, that's where I learned all my technical side. So we sort of went into learning how to Max script in 3D Max and learning how to like use face effects, which was like a automated facial system that allowed you to like do automated facial stuff. And then I was just sort of like exploring writing tools and doing all these things. And then that got me hired. And then I was able to use that to get hired at Rocksteady as a senior technical artist, or technical animator. And then I was able to do more of it and actually have a title, which was kind of nice. I was still considered an animator, even though I was doing pretty much not animator work while I was at Silicon Knights. What if I had my own company for film and games and wanted to take a break off one career and go into the other? Could I do that? That's a good question, and very interesting question. I'm trying to figure out a good answer for it because I don't want to say yes because yes is always going to be the answer because you can do whatever you want if you work hard enough at it. But is it easy to do? I'm not sure. You get to a certain point where the skills that you're learning are very specific to the trade that you're working for, and like it gets even more specific once you get into a studio. So if you're working on like 2D film, you're going to be getting a lot different skills than if you're in like a VFX film. So it becomes you kind of get good at the thing you're doing, and then you keep doing the thing you're doing because you're good at it, and it just snowballs into that same direction. It's hard to kind of take that and shift it in a new direction without kind of coming back to a junior role and then working your way back up again. So it's not exactly an easy thing to do, but if you really wanted to, could in theory pivot. Yeah, I also feel like it would be tricky. And that's the thing with the foundations. We get term 1 and 2 where we're teaching modeling and animation. By the time you get to the end of term 2, we've kind of taught enough where you're kind of at a point where you can pivot still. And then after that, it sort of starts to become unnecessary to learn both. If you're taking Unreal, then learn Unreal, but you shouldn't be learning Nuke and Unreal at the same time because it's like there's no point. You're never going to be using those two softwares in the same job. So you do have to pivot at one point and decide which direction it is you actually want to take. And I have that conversation a lot with my foundation students because they're usually like, I don't know what I want to do. Right up to the last minute. And then you're like, hey, you got to decide. But sometimes people know what they want. And they're just like, I got to do this. Actually, what I find was a lot of people want to take modeling. So then we're trying to like discuss, well, what kind of directions can you take with modeling? Is it lighting? You want to be a lighting artist, or you want to be like a environment artist, prop modeler? We talked about this stuff before. But like, it's sometimes requires a little bit of creativity of like, how can I utilize my strengths? And sometimes people can utilize strengths from their past. past jobs and stuff. And that might be the advantage that you can have to get yourself above the competition. All right, we're getting pretty close to the end of the stream. So this is maybe a good time to wrap it up, even though I haven't really done anything at all fancy here. I guess I've explained some stuff about the course, so can't really negate the value in that. But next week what we'll do is we'll say this is good enough for being blocked out, which I kind of had a feeling this might happen this week, where we will have, I wouldn't have gotten anything done in my stream, so we'll say this is blocked out, ready to go to stage 2, and we'll do something different. I was thinking about doing Niagara effects, but we'll see. We'll definitely change it up so that we cover a bit different than animation, and also more work in Unreal. And we'll try to integrate some pipelines and workflows that would involve this cinematic scene, and see what we can do to make it look good. Hopefully, it's just, you know, I might just be doing VFX, because I can see how we could definitely incorporate materials and VFX together. All right, so just catching up on the reading here. It was, yeah, enjoy your week. Thank you for coming and join me, everybody. Appreciate all the chatting. This is a lot of fun. I do really enjoy the chatting streams. I enjoy working streams too, but chatting streams are exciting. You just get to find out about people. And so if anyone has anything that they want to talk about, or any ideas of what direction you want me to steer within the next stream, feel free. Don't forget that next week I am on holidays, so I'm going to skip next week, because otherwise I'd be at a cottage trying to do my stream, and that would be totally lame for you. And probably lame for me too, because I'd be like, I could be not doing a stream right now. But anyway, so 2 weeks from then, I'll come back and we'll see what we can do. Hopefully we'll change it up and try to find something exciting. Thanks for everybody for showing up. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you next time. Take care, everybody.